It's been 4.5 months since the war began. 4 months of exhausting battles and heavy casualties. Having complete air and technical superiority, the German army has been gradually advancing deeper and deeper into Soviet territory. A huge number of experienced soldiers fell during the first war months, and because the Red Army was in dire need of recruits, a decision was made to enlist every able male to defend the motherland. The ranks of the Red Army were swelled with graduates and senior students. This decision determined the fate of 2 friends, Viktor Smirnov and Alexei Kuznetsov. Yesterday they were students at Rostov Technical School. Today they are Red Army soldiers standing on the drill ground beneath an autumn sky, awaiting assignment. For them, this war is just beginning.
Knocked off a track! Damn it!
You bet. Half a day wasted. At least we're alive.
What should we do now?
It'll be alright, Victor. We'll make it.
Guys, this is bad. German dive bombers have destroyed our column and our commander is dead. We must advance several hundred meters to the village of Yudino, where Captain Semenov's battalion should be holding the line there. He will give us further instructions. When we join our troops, we can search the column remains for survivors. Let's do it. There's no time to lose. 1 hour ago, the Germans broke through the defences of the neighbouring regiment and occupied the village, cutting us off from the only ford. Now endless enemy columns are moving to Rostov along the road to the north of the village, and we can do nothing to stop them. Our objective is to counterattack from the east and capture the village from the Germans. We must then reach the ford and take our positions on Hill 65, from where we'll have a clear view of the road. If we are lucky to capture a couple of field guns, then we'll be able to stop enemy transport moving along this line.
As the German front line was getting closer to the critical economic regions of the country, a huge effort was underway to curtail production and evacuate the major industries. Meanwhile, the situation at the front line remained grave. Despite the stubborn opposition of the Soviet forces, the enemy still maintained the initiative, and by the 20th of November 1941, Rostov-on-Don was almost completely occupied by the advancing German army. The German front line was getting close to the Rostselmash territory, and time to complete the evacuation was running out.
See? Everything's dismantled. The loading's nearly over.
The Germans are approaching the plant. You have less than half an hour.
Can't you understand how important it is?
I do. That's why we're here. But we can't hold them for long.
Gennady Stepanovich!
Coming! I'm sorry. We'll have to go. Please understand. The equipment is very valuable.
Junior Lieutenant Kuznetsov!
Junior Lieutenant Smirnov. Our job is to ensure the equipment is evacuated. On the defensive. Hold on, boys.
On the defensive!
The situation is bad. Having entered the town, the Germans are advancing towards the plant, and we have no time to establish a defence. Workers are currently loading the freight train with valuable equipment and plant archives, and our main objective is to protect that train. We have established an ammunition depot at a substation, and our reserves are already waiting there for a briefing. The enemy may attack us from these directions, but our forces are concentrated at the plant's key points. The 1st Regiment is in position by the coal storage facilities and booster station, so you shouldn't worry about your left flank. If the enemy attacks from the plant floor, they'll be faced with a squad in position by the maintenance facilities. The 2nd Regiment is in position at the plant office with a couple of guns. We can't predict how things will go, so you'll have to act according to circumstances. Let me give you some advice, though. Mine all approaches to the plant floor. This will at least delay the enemy. Mines are stored at the substation. We mustn't let them destroy or capture the train. We must hold them off until the loading is complete. After that, you must escort the train to Saratov. The motherland is counting on you. Don't let us down, Junior Lieutenant.
Come on, Alexei!
The war was now in its 5th month. The defensive action of the Red Army became fiercer, their counterattacks were stronger, and by mid-November the Soviet forces were winning battles at Rostov. Having eliminated the majority of the 16th Panzer Division and the Viking Division, the Red Army managed to drive the Germans back towards the southwest. At the same time, units on the southern front were finally redeployed to launch an offensive along the Generalsko-Rostov line in order to eliminate the General Ewald von Kleist's 1st Panzer Division and free the town. At this point, the two friends parted. Viktor Smirnov left the Rostselmash plant together with workers and arrived at Saratov by a troop train for his new assignment. Alexei Kuznetsov was slightly injured, taken captive and transferred to the village of Sinyavskoe by Rostov, which had recently been occupied by German troops and where they were setting up a camp to recruit and train prisoners of war for sabotage in the Soviet rear.
Come on, Alexei!
Kommunisten noch mehr. Man sagt, dass die neuen Divisionen jetzt aus Deutschland unterwegs sind. Beziehen Sie Stellung! Schneller!
And this is the smartest choice of all you have. Thanks to a sudden resistance attack on the village, Alexei Kuznetsov managed to deal with the guards and escape. He has now joined the resistance in an attack on the SS headquarters located to the north. The Germans have established a recruitment camp in the village, so there must be something at the headquarters to interest our counterintelligence. They are keeping several Soviet soldiers captive in this old school building. You must eliminate the guards and free the soldiers. We need every available male. Having swept through the German headquarters and captured the documents, Alexei must cross the front line and hand the information over to NKVD officers who will know what to do with it. You must act quickly. Armed troops from nearby garrisons could arrive at any minute, and then we'll be in trouble.
The Rostselmash plant successfully evacuated, Viktor Smirnov was reassigned to the 78th Rifle Division under the command of Colonel Afanasy Beloborodov to spend December 1941 near Moscow. The division took up a defensive position at the Volokolamsk highway near Dodovsk. Operation Barbarossa stalled. The Germans had not managed to capture Moscow by November, and the Wehrmacht was desperately trying to enter the capital before the new year. With bitter fighting, the Army Group Centre, under the command of Field Marshal von Bock, was advancing to Klinsonnyekhnogorsk. On the 2nd of December, the 78th Division headquarters received a report of an enemy motorized column moving along the Volokholamsk highway. Its mission was obvious: to capture Dedovsk with a sudden strike and encircle units operating east of the river Istra. One of the division's battalions was urgently redeployed to the village of Nevedyevo to stop the German forces and gain time for reinforcements to approach from other combat areas.
Organized defense! Move it, damn it! Full alert! Get ready to fire!
About an hour ago, our reconnaissance aircraft discovered massive German formations on the Volokholamsk highway. We hadn't expected a strike from this direction for a few days, so this is an unpleasant surprise. Headquarters is urgently redeploying forces from other combat areas to this locality. However, reinforcements will not be here for a few hours that we don't have. You must advance towards the enemy and take up a defensive position at the river. This will enable us to finish the main front line my soldiers are building on the right riverbank. Let's hope we can manage to dig several trenches and tank pits, protect the left flank with steel hedgehogs and mines, and establish a few gun stations. If we don't, we'll have to fight German tanks in the open. The longer you hold your ground, the better the defense line you will retreat to afterwards. We are the only ones available to fight the enemy, so we must hold out until reinforcements arrive. No retreat, Lieutenant. Moscow is behind us.
By March 1942, Soviet forces continued the intense offensive by Rzhev. To prevent Army Group Centre from being surrounded, the German command employed significant reserves to this front. This resulted in the forming of the Rzhev-Vyazma salient that could serve as a springboard to the Germans for a new offensive towards the capital of the USSR. Munitions and rations were very scarce, and both German and Soviet forces were suffering enormous casualties. But both sides understood the strategic importance of those positions, located just 150 kilometers from Moscow.
A network of intelligence schools with its headquarters in Germany. Who gave you these papers?
I've explained everything. Do you want me to repeat it?
I've read your testimony. We shall check it by all means. And now... Company, 10 hot! Today you have the chance to wash off your crimes with blood. Combat order. Capture and hold Hill 243 until reinforcements arrive. There's a war going on, which means that any sounds of cowardice will be punishable by death.
Listen to me, Lieutenant. We are in position by the village of Azhevo here. This is Hill 243. German guns on this hill have a lookout point over the highway. You must capture this hill and hold it, so that our motorized units can launch a long-range attack on the highway. The Germans are ready for us, having established a few resistance points. Penal units should strike here first. You will suppress enemy machine gun fire and overrun the areas around the houses. If you succeed, the area around the village church will be your next objective. If you manage to capture that land from the Germans, the village will be ours. In the end, you must reach Hill 243 and establish there. When in position, organize your defense and prepare for a counterattack, as the enemy is likely to seek to recover a position of advantage. This is it. Assume duty.
We have checked your data, Lieutenant.
Junior.
And Lieutenant already. Do you know what was in the documents you brought?
Not really. I had no time to look at
You
them.
have the chance now. Pack up. You're coming with me.
Another 6 months passed, months of fierce fighting and marching. The German offensive on Moscow turned out to be a complete fiasco. The Red Army had consolidated positions around the center and was fighting heavy battles in the south. Having been wounded in Moscow and spent 2 weeks in hospital, Viktor Smirnov was promoted to the rank of captain and assigned to Sevastopol to command a recently formed regiment. By the beginning of the summer of 1942, the Germans had amassed about 200,000 soldiers around the besieged city. These were accompanied by 450 tanks and armored vehicles and more than 2,000 guns and mortars, including heavy 600mm cans. Following an intensive bombardment, the enemy launched an offensive towards all the Sevastopol defense areas. Despite strong resistance from the defenders of the city, the 11th Army, commanded by General Erich von Manstein, advanced suffering heavy casualties. On the 21st of June, battles were in full swing on all approaches to Severnaya Bay.
Load faster!
The coastal region round the bay is one large fortified area, but unfortunately the enemy outnumbers us in equipment and manpower. Sevastopol is preparing an evacuation by sea through Severnaya Bay. The main German forces are expected to attack from these directions. This is our forward defense line. The trenches will be manned by several infantry companies, and artillery positions must be established in the bushes behind the trenches. Your objective is to engage the enemy at the forward defense line and await further orders. If it comes to the crunch, you have permission to call for reserves from town. Reinforcements and supply vehicles will arrive from Sevastopol along the highway over the only bridge. If we lose this baseline, we may forget about the reserves. Remember, the longer you stand your ground here, the more civilians can be evacuated. If the enemy breaks through the forward defense line, we will engage them at the main defense line. The right flank is protected by AP mines. The left flank and the centre are protected by anti-tank mines. There are also field gun positions, but we are counting on the 305mm guns of the coastal battery. The battery's prime task is to cover the bay entrance, but if turned towards land, it will provide us with solid fire support. If you get cut off from the main supply line, you can only count on our sailors to reach you by the coastal road. Now for the most important part. We are unlikely to repel this assault, but you must hold the enemy at all costs until the evacuation is complete. If we allow the Germans to reach the beach and establish gun positions, they will sweep the Severnaya Bay exit with fire and sink most of our transport units. Remember, the lives of thousands of women and children are in your hands. Good luck, Commander.
The war was in full swing in the spring of 1945. Germany was ablaze, and Allied forces were advancing from the west. The Red Army was racing towards Berlin from the east, having already freed Poland, Hungary and most of Czechoslovakia, and captured Vienna, the capital of Austria. Forces of the First Belarusian Front were fighting on the left bank of the river Oder, expanding the previously captured Kustrin springboard and preparing for a decisive attack on Berlin, just 70 kilometers away. Seriously wounded, Viktor Smirnov barely made it through the siege of Sevastopol. He had to be carried off the battlefield. This was followed by a sea evacuation, a stay in hospital, military academy, promotion to major and a new assignment. After the data he had obtained was confirmed, Alexei Kuznetsov was fully exonerated and accepted into the NKGB Academy to study the intricacies of reconnaissance and sabotage. The friends were going their separate ways towards victory, not knowing that they were destined to meet at Seelow the day before the Berlin offensive operation.
Alexei! Is it you?
You bet!
I should have known it was you when I mentioned Kuznetsov's recon squad.
The moment I found out who was commanding this front area. I was ordered to break through the front line tonight in your sector.
I know. I was ordered to assist. And I mentioned someone called Kuznetsov. I never thought it was you. Hey, look at you. A captain already.
Oh, look who's talking, Major. So tell me.
It's getting dark. We need to move out.
In a hurry?
Alexei, we need to talk.
What is it?
My scouts. It's been 24 hours since we last contacted them. I'm afraid they're all dead.
How can I help?
Kuznetsov is on air!
Thank God. He's alive. Launch the offensive! Launch the offensive!
Take a look at the map, Captain. We are here, near the front line. German positions are right behind the farmstead, and hell knows what is going on there. Major Smirnov has lost several reconnaissance squads trying to find out. Between the enemy and us is a no-man's land, illuminated by flares. It is visible even at night, so stay away from those flares in case you get caught in machine gun fire. Your squad must follow this route to this area, but I'm afraid it's no easy walk. We will launch an offensive at dawn. Casualties may be heavy without reconnaissance data, and the enemy are likely to have tanks and artillery positioned in the hills. Here we have stored a few dynamite sticks and a mine detector. The Germans have probably mined the main road which our tanks will take tomorrow. In other words, we need to find out as much as possible to try to save lives of many Red Army soldiers. Good luck, Captain. We'll be waiting for radio contact.
Oh Mann! Feuerschutz! Jetzt!
According to reconnaissance data from Kuznetsov's group, there is a well-established enemy defense area ahead. It will be hard to break through it, but we must succeed. At 600 hours, we will launch an offensive in 3 directions at once. As soon as we get through the forward defense line, we will advance further via the hills, clearing the way for the second echelon. As soon as we have taken the hills on both sides of the road from the enemy and secured the pass, we will proceed to the last objective for today. Elimination of German supply bases in this area. The offensive will be supported by heavy artillery. Howitzers will fire at targets to be marked by smoke pots that you can get from this vehicle. So, Major, are you up for some action?
In the vicinity of Seelow, the enemy had been preparing its defence since January 1945. Before the assault on the 14th of April, Soviet rifle battalions launched an offensive reconnaissance after a 20-minute artillery strike. This allowed them to advance up to 5 kilometers in certain areas and surmount the densest minefields. The continuity of the enemy's defence was broken down, creating the necessary prerequisites for a successful swarm attack. On the morning of the 16th of April, 2 hours before dawn, the firing began. The main forces of the 1st Belarusian and the 1st Ukrainian fronts initiated the offensive that, 2 weeks later, would end with the capture of Berlin and the surrender of the German army. Alexei Kuznetsov's squad successfully broke through the front line, travelling deeper into enemy territory, and in 2 days reached the area around Lake Heinersdorf and the Intelligence Fusion Center, which was compiling data on the actions of all enemy agents in the Soviet Union. Here they were to find the list of agents that Soviet counterintelligence needed so badly.
Hey, Captain, where's the plane?
Captain, are there many documents?
Too many to carry.
Where has it been?
I wonder as well.
Sergeant Grishenko was wounded during an incident with a German patrol, so we headed for the destination behind schedule. Now we must obtain medication and administer aid to the sergeant before proceeding. This cluster of buildings is a German saboteur training center. It is hidden from view in the mountains, and all contact is by the hydroplane you've just seen. All supplies are delivered by air as well. Agent lists are kept somewhere there, and I believe that local officers are bound to know their exact location. There are frequent patrols in this area, so keep it quiet. Get the documents and return. Come on, guys.
One move and you're dead. Where is the archive with all the documentation? Tell me.
There are no documents here. Please don't shoot. The archive was taken away by plane last night. I don't know where. Maybe Falster. Find the pilot. He must know.
Okay, wait here. We'll be back if it turns out you're lying.
By mid-April 1945, Germany was in complete political isolation, having lost all its allies in Europe. The armoured corps of the 1st Belarusian and the 1st Ukrainian fronts reached the approaches to Berlin and were ready to deal their enemy a mortal blow. On the Western Front, the Allied forces, having crossed the Rhine and crushed the enemy forces at the Ruhr, were advancing to the Elbe to join the Red Army and split Germany into two isolated regions. The fall of the Third Reich was close at hand. According to a captured German officer, all intelligence files were transferred from Lake Heinersdorf to Falster Island in the Baltic Sea. The Abwehr Command was hoping to move them, along with other valuable cargo, by sea to a previously prepared hideout outside Europe. Having captured a seaplane and obtained Falster coordinates from the Baltic Fleet Intelligence Branch, Alexei Kuznetsov's squad departed on its last mission. Its task was to capture the list of agents before it was lost for good in the North Atlantic Ocean.
We're on Falster Island in the Baltic Sea. The Germans have a base here as well. We couldn't find out much, but noticed a submarine in the docks preparing to ship out. I believe the agent lists are on board. There are some antennas here, most likely a powerful transmitter. We could use it to radio the mainland for air support. We won't succeed on our own. But before we do that, we must neutralize Akak at the docks, or they'll shoot our reinforcements down. If we do it neatly, and the submarine remains in the dock, consider that agent list ours. There's no time to lose. Comrades, into action.
Take that!
Everyone to the boat! Move it!
What's this all about?
Don't you know?
May I ask you as an officer?
After we talk. Take him away!
Colonel, I was told you were here.
I'm done here. Let's go, Major. It's clear-cut about the captain. I doubt he will say anything of interest, but the rest is much more interesting.